Yo, 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 Dark and Darker people. Today, the main dev, or one of the developers from Dark and Darker, posted some statistics in the Discord under the development channel as shown on screen. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about it, what it means to you, and ways that we can use this data to our advantage. The main info that we have in the first analytic posted is the created Steam account, which is 1.9 million, close to 2 million. And what this means is how many people actually create a Steam account within this game. So that is pretty good at close to 2 mil. If we see the connect user count, this is telling us how many concurrent people played the game at once. So we see 100,000 here according to Steam, which I'll show soon. The peak was 108,000, which is around 5%, close to 5% of their total people who downloaded the game. Now, according to Steam, if you look at this page here, what we see is Dark and Darker demo at 108,520. This is their highest play count. Out of all the several hundreds of thousands of games on Steam, Dark and Darker in the last playtest ranked at 103, which is pretty damn good, especially beating titles such as FIFA 22, which has billions of dollars in marketing efforts, and Battlefield as well. So these numbers are absolutely insane. Now we look at this article here, which shows Escape from Tarkov as well, so we can compare it to them. This tweet, as you see, was posted by the main owner developer Nikita of Escape from Tarkov. Back in 2020, he posted that based out of their patch 12.6, they broke a 200,000 concurrent player record. So like I said, this was in 2020, 4 years after their release. So Dark and Darker only being half of that when they've not been doing many marketing efforts. It's still just a demo, shows that the game has incredible popularity. This next stat that we see is the amount of people that created a class and which class it was. So across the board, everything seems to be relatively balanced. We see Cleric and Wizard being lower. Now, Cleric is mainly a team-based character, so that would, almost knock out half of the people who play the game, because half of the people who play this game is solo, and as well as Wizard, and Wizard being seems to be maybe quite a difficult class for people to play solo, so that could be the suggestion there, but otherwise relatively balanced, which is absolutely great. The second stat we're seeing here is the total play count by map. So we see that the solo map here is 34%. These Crypto 2, 1, and 3, this is all normal high castle plays, and the Infernos is down under the red portal, and then these very small ones here that don't even have a figure, I believe to be high roller. Okay, next we've got the Forgotten Castle escape or die map. What this stat is basically saying is how many people escape compared to the amount of people who actually die. What we're seeing is around only 30% of a lobby actually escapes each time they play. And as we see in the bottom left statistic, for the people who go down under the red portal, it's a much smaller percentage of people who survive. You're looking at 15% roughly. I'm going to put up on screen for a couple seconds each class and the entry skills that they take. So the skills are the 2 abilities that you get rather than the perks that you select from level 5 to 15. And then this can potentially help you to see what the average people are playing and what the average people are, what abilities they're using, so you can maybe mimic it if you want to see how people are doing it. Next, we can look at what the rankings are for high roller per class and what they can achieve. So if you see treasure collector here in the top left, that basically means how much loot people collect, and escape artist, how many people survive and whatnot. So as you can see, ranger pretty much takes the lead on all PvE elements of the game, whereas the barbarian is taking the lead here, only just in terms of PvP. Now this is all high roller, so it won't represent or reflect the solo map and whatnot, but it's some good information that we can see if you were to play high roller. Next, we're looking at the frequently traded items, most expensive items and whatnot. So from day one, we see a small increase in candy trades and an extremely high increase at the last day of the playtest. If people got to that point of wealth in the game, where they were using candies as a form of gold storage because the gold purses took up too much space. That's potentially what we can see slowly happening throughout the playtest of people accumulating wealth. The last day is probably people buying a bunch of candies to buy the candy related gear and, blow all their money and test that here at the end. Now the items on the right, it's hard to say exactly what it means. If it means how many, what items were traded for candies and whatnot, but this could be what that suggests. So we see, mainly weapons here that are being traded for candy specifically. Now, meta action score is a little bit harder to read. It doesn't necessarily tell us what this means. I would imply that this means how much time was spent in each section of the game. So we see around 30% of time people were actually playing the game, a very small percentage of people who were in the shop, large percentage of people were messing around in the stash, and then so on and so forth. I would say that these numbers are pretty good, although the stash time seems to be rather high than I thought, as there's not very much stash, so it doesn't seem to me that you'd be spending too much time there. But overall, if there's a 30% playtime, I would find that really good compared to something like Tarkov, where you're spending most of the time in the trader post or messing with your stash trying to play Tetris. Now, a funny one here is coming from the Gathering Hall chat. Now, I didn't use this personally, but I believe this was a feature that was used for people trying to look for group. This was something they had in the Discord, which was actually a hell of a lot easier to interact with, but they wanted to implement that feature into the game instead. Now, what we see, I'm guessing by Gathering Hall sentiment analysis, in terms of negative fear, this would either be, people shit-talking or saying things that they shouldn't, over, speaking badly about the Gathering Hall system. So if anyone's living in US West, you guys are all really toxic. And if anyone's living in Seoul and Seoul and Singapore and Sydney, it seems you guys are quite nice people. So I think I know which server I'm going to be changing to. Now, there was a lot more data posted, but not necessarily all of it can really help us too much in understanding the way the game's going, how the community is interacting with the game, certain classes and how balanced they are and whatnot. So I won't be going through all of it, but we can, in this video, we've talked about things that are sort of important that we can look at and how that can help you, especially with this last graph here. So if we look at the Forgotten Castle map, as well as the Goblin Caves map here at the bottom, we pretty much see an average of gold that people are making per run, and per class as well. So if we look at the very top graph, we're pretty much seeing the Barbarian, the Fighter, and the Rogue are taking the lead on how much gold they're earning on average. Now, this doesn't take into account gear and what gear is actually worth in terms of selling it on the trader market. I'm guessing this is basically an average of what the traders would buy it from you. So if you're interested in making money and maximizing that, potentially the three classes I just said are going to be the best ones for that. Now, if we look at High Roller as well, the number surprisingly only doubles, but like I said again, this won't take into account gear, and there's a much better gear that is dropped in the High Roller, but on average you're earning around 190 gold each game compared to the Forgotten Castle, which is only around 100. Now we look at Goblin Caves as well, Barbarian again, as well as the Fighter taking the lead here, with the Wizard coming in at the very last on the bottom as well. Surprisingly, Wizards are earning less than Clerics. Not too sure how that's happening, but maybe the Wizards are having a tough time playing in the solo map. Overall, what we can see from all this data is if you want to make money, on average, the best class you can probably play is the Fighter or Barbarian. We're also seeing in that stat previously that the Ranger is having the easiest time against all PvE experiences within the game. So if you're wanting to do some bosses or, just survive PvE well, then maybe you're going to be making more money on average because you're surviving more and performing the best. So maybe Ranger could be a class for you. The most interesting data to me here was the concurrent player and the player growth. Seeing how crazy high that is. At 108,000 concurrent players is just mind-boggling for a game that's just in demo with almost no marketing, and the game has no concurrent income coming in yet. So they're doing a hell of a job, which is great for us, and it's only going to increase from here. I believe the last playtest achieved around 60,000 concurrent players, so a relatively large increase of players within only a month or two, or however long it took to get us from the last playtest to this one. So overall, info is looking really good. Hopefully you can use some of this to your advantage. Appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.